So basically what happened, this is exactly what happened. So Trump tweeted about mail-in ballots because of the coronavirus. Lots of states are trying to do mail-in ballots for the elections, so people don't have to go to polling offices. Trump tweeted something along the lines of, we absolutely are not doing mail-in ballots because they can be fraud. They can be faked very easily, fraud, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then what Twitter did, so he tweeted
Which also in his claim, it means that he says the Democrats would
okay, yeah,
benefit from that.
and he was basically saying the Democrats want to do this because they want to rig the election, blah, blah, blah. And then Twitter ended up putting a little fact check symbol beneath his tweets.
The tweet.
Which no one's ever seen before.
I never seen it before.
It's
I actually
a new
was looking
thing.
for that. I thought it was, what he said that they put this fact check warning or something.
Yeah.
Meaning that they're going to check what he said.
Yeah.
Like they're going to...
Well, basically, there's a fact check warning, and then when you click on it, it sent you to a page that basically gave you the facts about mail-in ballots. And so they did that, and that's unprecedented. They've never done that before. And Trump was upset, and he says, "What the heck is this?" And he went on a million tweets. You can go to his Twitter account if you want to read them all.
Yeah.
But basically, he tweeted a bunch about it, and then he says, "I'm gonna make an executive order because." He said this is like not the first time something like this has happened. Conservatives on Twitter and Facebook and other platforms have been censored and treated unfairly and all these things. And then he basically said, I'm going to write an executive order that we're going to regulate and punish these guys. That's what he said. And so that's the executive order that's coming out today. We don't know exactly what it's going to say, but the Section 230 part is where it gets interesting. Forget about, for a second, whatever you think about Trump or what you think about Twitter or Facebook or anything. If you just look at the law, basically, for those who don't know what Section 230 is, it's a law that it's pretty old. It's basically, not pretty old, but as far as the internet goes, it's pretty old. It came about in the 90s, where I forget exactly which forum it was on, but this is pre-social media. It was on internet forums. And someone said something slanderous or untrue on a forum about somebody that really damaged their reputation. That person ended up taking the forum owners to court. And so then this case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court ruled that the forums, and in this case, like a Twitter, for example, is not responsible for what is posted on Twitter. They are simply a platform. They don't have editorial control. So they don't. So if someone posts something slanderous on Twitter, Twitter doesn't face ramifications. Whereas if the New York Times writes an article that's slanderous, then they can be punished and sued for slander.
Right, but again, like you said, this was actually set up, or this law came to effect before social media.
This is before social media, but it's applied. It's set precedent, saying if you create a public, free platform for anybody to speak, you're not responsible as the platform owner for what people say on it. That was the law. And that basically has been what governed for the last 25 years, and why every time people talk about, oh, Facebook should do this or Twitter should do this, it's always like, well, under Section 230, they're not supposed to, and they're protected.
And to be honest, that's also the defense that all these social media platforms have used, as far as them saying we're not supposed to be.
We're not police. We're not fact checkers. We're not editorial. We're not a newspaper. We're a public forum. And so, but the interesting thing is now, okay, so Twitter basically put a fact check thing, which is an editorial thing. And actually, people found an error in there. When you click on the link and it takes you to this page, there's actually an error in that page saying something about Oregon and other states, and they said, oh, that's actually not true. But anyways, basically by doing that, the argument that Trump is making is that, well, that's editorial. Now all of a sudden you guys have become editorial. So if you become editorial, then I can treat you no differently than the Washington Post or New York Times as far as by editorial regulations which are in place.
You
no
decide what is
fall under Section 230.
You become the judge of deciding what is correct or factual or not, or whatever. Then you become obviously the executive.
That's the whole debate that's going on right now, and that's basically the quick summary for anybody who doesn't understand. Now, where people fall on this, obviously, all types of areas. I'll give my opinion. I think Section 230 is a great thing. And I think that social media platforms, and Zuckerberg actually came out and said this too, because he obviously would be affected by this. And he said, we don't want to be in the fact-checking business. He says, we don't want to be editorial. He said, we leave it up to the users to decide those things, but we don't want to be under the... Now, obviously, he's saying those things because he doesn't want to be affected by the bill, but that's been his stance for a long time. And honestly, you know, the funny thing is, too, that Jack Dorsey, CEO of Twitter, has been very pro-free speech for a long time, too. And he even, you know, one thing I'm very interested in, there's been a lot of talks, I don't know if you know about this, that Twitter is thinking about, Jack has proposed this, creating 2 Twitters.
Right, yeah.
One Twitter that's the current Twitter, and it's going to be and will actually become more censored for anything like hate speech, and other stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then basically a Wild West Twitter, nothing. There's
Everything
no
goes.
protection,
Right.
no deleting tweets, no censorship. Anything goes. Even really raunchy stuff. You know, even bad things, racism, homophobia, hate speech, anything goes. That's it. Wild West Twitter, basically. And he says, so people have the option. If you want to be on Wild West Twitter, you can be on Wild West Twitter. If you want to be on more controlled Twitter, you can be on, but they give people the option. I actually think that's a good idea, honestly.
I don't know. I mean, people will have to choose. I mean, people go to Twitter to listen to the people that like to listen to or follow. And people end up going to whichever Twitter platform those guys decide to be on. Probably they'll be on both. I mean, you're a personality or some person, you go on one, and it's like you go to a movie and it's like a greater maturity audience or mature audience or R or whatever, and then you go to another Twitter where it's PG-13 and you're like, okay, in this one I need to be a little more moderate, but you are able to stay in both. I don't know if that's a good idea. I think
it is, because it answers...
It's like too much stuff now. Now we need to monitor 2 different Twitter accounts, and I said this on this one, I said this on that one.
Yeah, but it solves the problem of the big debate, and this is the nuance to it. And I think people are so emotional when it comes to these things, and so overreactive, and don't put on their rational thinking hats. In the same way, like, okay, another thing that's come up time and time again that I just really disagree with is that there's been so many people that say ban Trump from Twitter, because if anybody else were tweeting what he tweets, they would get removed from Twitter. And it's like, well, just because because you have to take away that it's Trump for a second. Take away the name, take away your connections, thoughts, whether pro or against to Trump. Just think about it as this is a very important world leader that has a lot of power, okay? Do you want this person to be open and maybe on the side of probably over-communicative, almost to a fault, or would you rather them be guarded and not say anything and secretive and keep the public in the dark? Well, I personally would rather have a president be way over-communicative to a fault than be keeping the public in the dark. And this idea that banning Trump from Twitter is going to do anything, I think the truth is, listen, just because you ban him from Twitter, he's still the president of the United States. That's not going to change.
He'll find another platform.
Exactly. He's just going to find another platform.
And he has so many followers. That's for a reason. He's just
but it sets a precedent too, because remember, Trump is not going to be president forever. We'll have many more presidents in the future. You're not always going to like who's president. That's life.
But he's also set up a trend, because before he started pretty much announcing laws on Twitter.
And now every politician does that.
Right. And not only in the U.S., but also
worldwide.
International.
Yes.
I mean, there's
and I think that's a good thing.
The ECU promotes new laws, and they, even with Brexit, when they were going with negotiations on how to execute Brexit and whether it was going to be one way, the deadlines, all that stuff, they would actually make the announcements on Twitter. The president of the ECU. I mean, it's like European community. So
I think it's a good thing.
It's just a platform. Why not have a platform where you can have your direct voice versus what the press is going to say or extract from you?
Before it used to be just the president makes a statement and then it gets reported on all these channels. And now instead the president has a platform that he can just make the statement directly.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
But it's the same thing for everybody.
So this idea that banning Trump, because remember, people are too emotional in the moment. You have to think, if you set that precedent of banning Trump from Twitter, that means that in the future, any president or any political figure that people don't like, now we're just going to ban them? Okay, but they're still in power. That doesn't take their power away. So I think that's a stupid idea. But then beyond that, so